Hey everybody, my name is Vince and welcome back to the Fickle Pickle Jar, where we talk about a couple of things that just are on our mind.
Zelda 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and my absolute favorite NES game by far. Regardless of its unique style and setup compared to every other game in the franchise, it's an incredibly snappy, kinetic, and rewarding game experience. It's also a very, very hard game to many. However, what if I told you that the game is significantly easier than you'd initially think? Now that it's over 30 years since its release, a number of tips, tricks, and exploits have been discovered to make this game so much more of a breeze. I figure it's high time to explain all the little things I've learned that make for a super replayable title.
So, without further ado, let's get started.
I first would like to point out the most unique Zelda mechanic, experience points. As you gain EXP, you have what's effectively a skill tree of HP, magic, and attack. Most people ordinarily would choose the first one available, but you can actually opt out and save your EXP for something more expensive. I personally like the safer attack buffs, but this trick is also important for clutch scenarios. Imagine being low on health, but if you played your cards right, you can use an upcoming level up to completely restore your health on top of a defense buff. Or you can recharge your magic to come up with an escape plan. With this in mind, Zelda 2 can sometimes be a micromanaging game when it wants to be. I also point out that defeating a dungeon boss and reaching the end gives you a guaranteed level up no matter how far away it was to begin with. If you can do your math, you can optimize your level games to get much more of an edge later on. Okay, so get this. If you happen to run low on HP, get hit with a fatal blow, and it happens to be on the boundary, the knockback can actually send you out of the fight scene and prevent you from losing a life. This basically has no practical use, but it's fun knowing that if anyone says a cornered Link never fights, most people can easily get the first couple of spells, no biggie, but the third spell onward is where things get a little bit more tricky. Let's go over the more out there ones. Okay, so to find this woman's mirror, you have to enter a certain empty house and press the action button while ducking underneath this table here. And there you go. Similar to Saria Town, all you have to do is go to the nearby fountain and press the action button. And boom, free water. The woman's child can be found on the bottommost area of the maze island, guarded by a singular Lizalfos. Epileptics beware, these following scenes can be pretty tough to watch. Also worth noting, the upward thrust is accessible by using the jump spell to get on this roof and doing your best Super Mario impression on this chimney. Use the hammer to clear these trees, just roll with it. And then you'll find the town, a climbable chimney, and the skeleton key along with your final magic expansion. And finally, Old Kasuto. You have to find New Kasuto and get all the magic containers along the way to get the final spell here. And I'm just gonna say, don't miss this. This is important. On certain spaces, you'll find scripted scenarios, which can be good like a power-up location, or bad, like a mandatory path of pain. Believe it or not, you can override a lot of these encounters by walking onto the space in question with a roaming enemy encounter. Now, there's only about 3 locations in particular where applicable, but trust me when I say I saved you guys a lot of suffering in the late game. The most important thing about Zelda 2, like Smash Brothers, is learning how to approach your opponent. Here's a quick rundown on the tougher ones. Ideally, it's best to play aggressively with ducking jump stabs. These guys love spacing you out, like a Jigglypuff with a green bandana. Just beware of the boomerangs that fly behind you, and these guys won't be difficult to read. Thanks to what appears to be an animation exploit, you can actually use a neutral jump stab to attack these guys without much harm. Mastering the rhythm and the timing, and they're just practically waiting in line to die. Similar to Dark Nuts, but with the small twist of using ducking jump stabs for maximum effectiveness. At this late in the game, pogoing over them also works as an escape plan. By far the most frequent and threatening parts of Death Mountain. This one requires a bit more quick feet, good rhythm, and very aggressive ducking jump stab strats. But more often than not, you'll actually have the high ground where you can slowly but surely abuse their resetting animation frames to weave in and out of their axe swinging while scoring free hits. Try it out for yourself, it's amazing. Alright, time to separate the boys from the men. My best advice is to jump the moment you see them swing their axe and get a little forward momentum while giving a ducking jump stab. Granted, this strat isn't perfect, but it gets results with good patience. Would you believe the reflect spell works on their boomerang maces? Other than that, it's sometimes better to find lower ground or just run away, as they're a lot trickier than most to hard counter. Like most late game enemies, you can often ignore them with pogo strats, but in the more mandatory moments like in the Rebenak fights, the best course of action is to wait for them to finish their flurry attacks to catch them on their easier to dodge singular swipes. Just keep in mind that they mind their space, like a good relationship should. My personal favorite stick is giving the old samurai showdown with an upward thrust as they jump.
Hitting people up and jumping, oh, right in the skulljillies.
Around the island palace is when you're going to start to find hidden passageways and chasms to otherwise inaccessible parts of the building. A few noteworthy examples are going to be located here on the screen. Keep your eyes peeled and keep your wits about you, as this is one aspect of the game that aged poorly. But once you remember them, it's hard to forget. Likewise, I'm going to be showing a full map of the item locations on screen. Some of these are improperly displayed in guidebooks, so I feel it necessary to set the record straight. Finally, the most tricky maneuver to use in casual play. Not because it's hard to pull off or anything, but more because of the high magic cost for the fairy spell. You'll rarely find the perfect set of scenarios for this to apply effectively. Whenever you find a locked door, you are capable of bypassing it using the fairy spell. A nice exploit in theory, but a couple of catches keep it from being absolutely broken. First is the rather expensive fairy spell itself. Second, you have to have no keys in your inventory for this to work, otherwise you won't slide past the lock without opening it automatically. And finally, this can make for a soft lock scenario if you run out of magic or keys, which is very likely in the magic-intensive dungeons such as the Maze Palace. The most ideal situation is upon finding the palace's overworld item, as those are simple locked doors you can whiz to and fro without losing the effects of the fairy spell. Otherwise, it's best to use this technique with caution and foresight. And that's all the Zelda 2 information I can pass on to you. There's certainly plenty more to learn about this game, but everything here will help you not only survive, but excel to at Zelda 2.